Hey, Valerie, Counts might be just a few minutes late. He's on the phone with some important people.
We'll get started in just a few minutes. We're going to give a couple of minutes to see if anybody else jumps on. But I do want to let the attendees know that are here that this is being recorded. So if you know of someone that wasn't able to make this webinar, let them know that we'll have it posted on our website in about a couple of hours after this webinar is completed. So that you can rewatch it, they can rewatch it. Because we know for some people this is a convenient time and others this isn't. So we are recording this and all of the Q&A webinars that we do for people to watch at a later time. So if you have any questions, you can ask those by using the chat or the Q&A feature. We'll monitor those throughout the webinar and we'll do our very best to answer those live. Give it just another minute and we'll get started. Okay, well, I've got 12:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank you for joining us for today's Q&A about a very important topic, safety and security at Snyder ISD. We've already received several questions from parents, but if you do have questions you'd like to ask, you can type that in during the webinar and we'll do our best to answer it live. And of course, if you have questions that you think of afterwards, you can always email us at questions@snyderisd.net. Or give us a call. We'll be glad to visit with you. So I want to welcome our panelists that we have that have joined us today. We have Lieutenant Mike Counts, who should be here momentarily with the Snyder Police Department. We have Deputy Fire Marshal Nathan Hines. We have Superintendent of Schools for Snyder ISD, Dr. Eddie Bland. Director of Administrative Services for Snyder ISD, Cade. And we also have Mr. Tate, the Snyder High School Assistant Principal. My name is Valerie Morris, and I'm the Public Information Officer for Snyder ISD. And here, we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start off with the general question that we received, and that is, what are some basic steps that Snyder ISD is taking to keep schools safe?
Well, obviously, sorry. Obviously, safety is one of our utmost concern we have for our students and faculty, our community as a whole. We do our best to have locked doors and entrances. We've made a transition over the last several years to access controls in all buildings. As our employees, we wear our ID tags, and there was also our access keys to get in and out of buildings. We have IDs required to access the campus for early student pickup. We use a Raptor system. There's several of those systems in place, but whenever visitors come on campus, they have to scan their driver's license through the Raptor system does background checks. We do background checks and fingerprinting on all of our staff and vendors. That's not, I mean, yes, we would do it anyway, but that's also through statute. We conduct regular safety drills, and we're fortunate to have somebody like Mr. Tate that helps oversee that we get everything done that we're supposed to do, because we try to do all this in combination with the old reading, writing, and arithmetic too. We do have safety audits completed. It's by the Region Center, but it's an outside party that comes in and does a safety audit for the district. And Mr. Tate, I think that's every 3 years they do those safety audits. Yes, I see a head shake. Yes.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Yes. And then we have the Safety and Support School program that formerly called the Threat Assessment Team that reviews incidents that happen within our district on a regular basis. It's, we're happy. I mean, to take feedback from folks. We think we have a really good working relationship with all the law enforcement and emergency responders in our area that when we're working with this. We take it serious. I know everybody can probably come up with, well, why don't you do this or do that? We're trying to do everything we can.
Absolutely. And we are working with the Snyder Police Department on a standard response protocol is what we call it.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tate, do you want to elaborate a little bit about that as well?
Yes, ma'am. There are certain drills that the state mandates that we do. So in working with Officer Latham and Lieutenant Counts, we wanted to use a common language. That way we understand each other when we use certain codes or certain words. So what we have is in these drills that we do, some are mandated, some are not. And so I'm going to go over the drills that we do and how often we do them. We have a drill called Hold. This is a drill that's not required, but we will do 2 a year. And what we do on that is we hold students in the room, we clear the hallways. Students are to get out of the hallways, go into a classroom, and they conduct business as usual. And the teachers, same thing, they conduct business as usual. They lock their doors and account for all the students and the adults. We do a secure, what is called a lockout drill, where we're gonna, even though our doors are always locked, our exterior doors, we're gonna ensure that all doors are locked and we're gonna move all the students inside, but we're not gonna allow anyone else in the building. We're going to get them inside, locked outside doors. We're going to continue business as usual there as well. We have to do 1 of those a year. We have to do 2 lockdown drills per year. That's 1 per semester. That's where we're going to get everybody in the classroom. We're going to get them out of sight. We're going to turn the lights out. We're going to stay quiet. We will come through and clear the building, clear the rooms. We also like for the police department to come help even when we're doing those drills. That way they're more familiar with the locations and where our students are at. We have evacuate drill. We do these. We have to do those once a year, and we're just going to leave everything in the classroom and we're going to evacuate to a certain area. And then we have to do 2 shelters in place, 1 per semester. 1 is for weather, such as a tornado drill. We will do 1 of those per semester. And then we have to do a shelter in place for hazmat. And that is, we'll keep everybody in the classroom and secure the classroom at the best we can. Those are the drills, and that's the common language that we will use with the police department and fire department as well.
Right. And that's something that we want to make sure our parents are aware of, those terms that we will be using. Of course, we're talking about a drill scenario. Nobody wants to think about it, but in the event that we do have a situation where this is actually happening and we will notify you about the situation, we will use these terms as well so that everybody is using the same language. And through Parent Square, we'll send a notification out should there be an actual emergency where we're needing to take any of these precautions, and we will use these terms. They're also on our website so that if you're not quite sure what's going on, you can go there to get more information. Of course, in the event of an emergency, we might not be able to elaborate on exactly what each thing means. And so we want to make sure that you have those resources to know what is actually going on. Is there anything else that you all wanted to touch on our standard response protocol? How will we be notified in the event of an emergency? I touched a little bit on that. That is our Parent Square communication platform. Hopefully everyone that is on this webinar is on Parent Square. And we also have our emergency responders. We have a select group of those folks that are on Parent Square as well, so that we can keep them in the loop should we have to put anything like that in place. How often should someone expect updates if there is an emergency? Mr. Cade, do you want to touch on that one? Oh, can't hear you. I can't hear you. I think Mr. Cade is having some technical difficulties.
So we can, I mean, how often can you expect updates? And that's, I mean, we'll do it as often as we can when we're in the middle of an event. A lot of it's going to be, we're waiting on authorization from law enforcement or the emergency responders before we are sharing out. We're trying to communicate with them when we're in that process. I mean, we totally understand that the unknown is what provides, probably promotes the most anxiety among people. So we're going to share information as fast as we can. We live in a world today where everyone wants immediate gratification. And there's just some instances where we have to delay before we can actually, we want to make sure when we give information that it's accurate. Because the worst thing we can do is give inaccurate information to the public.
Absolutely. And again, we'll be doing that through Parent Square, coordinating with local media outlets as needed as well. So we appreciate your patience as we work together to get any of that information out. So if students are dismissed early, which might be something that's needed, I know we've had some instances where there wasn't a, maybe the emergency was something like we had the water that was shut off, or we have electricity out. So if school needs to be dismissed, how will we know where to pick up kids and when to pick them up? How will that information be communicated? Mr. Tate, from a school perspective, how do you all typically get that information out?
We would send it through Parent Square, you know, let them notify them of the time and where we would want their students to be picked up at.
Okay.
And Valerie Morse is excellent at also getting it all out. I mean, through the different our different avenues of social media, but Parent Square should be your first go-to. Right.
And that's one of the reasons we do have Parent Square, especially in those time-sensitive scenarios. The algorithms and how Facebook and social media works, I might put it out and you might not see it until tomorrow. So certainly if there is a time-sensitive issue, we want to make sure that you get that as soon as possible. So please go to Parent Square if you are looking for updates. We also have capabilities on Parent Square to be able to push those notifications out instantly in the event of emergency. So it will not only go to your app, but you will receive a phone call and a text message, and it will override any settings that you have. Of course, we'll just use that in an emergency, but we do have that capability. So if there's a safety concern that somebody has, how should a parent address that? And maybe it's an emergency, maybe it's a threat, or just a general concern. What should a parent do?
Can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, if there's an emergency or an immediate threat, obviously we want you to dial or have a student dial 911, have a parent dial 911 if there's something that's life-threatening or they're in imminent danger. If it's a general concern or something that you notice, something that you see, there's a see something, say something forum. It is located on our website under safety and security. And it's also a quick link at the bottom of our website page. And then there are also links to that see something, say something forum in the link section of Parent Square. And we would encourage anyone that sees something that they feel is a concern to put it in there, because that is actively monitored and comes directly to us.
Okay. And that should all be easily accessible. If anyone has a question or concern, or they're not quite sure who to address, call the school. By all means, we're glad to help you with that. Now, kind of along the same topic, what if a parent has a concern about bullying with their student? Mr. Tate, do you want to touch on that one?
Yes, ma'am. Same thing as what Mr. Cade said. That can be turned in through the see something, say something. It can be a call up to that campus, make them aware of your concern. What we do is all bullying that is turned in, we look into it, we investigate it. There's a law called David's Law that justifies if it meets the legal definition of bullying or harassment. It may not meet that definition, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing done about it if it doesn't meet the legal definition. Some of the things that we do, even if it doesn't meet the legal definition, counseling, stay away agreements, change of schedules are some of the things that we do. I know at least 2 of the campuses here in the district have a bullying committee that someone will investigate, talk to everybody that may possibly have information about the situation, and then we take that to a committee, and they follow the David's Law to verify whether it does or doesn't meet it. And then, of course, whether it meets it or it doesn't, we follow and enforce the code of conduct when necessary.
Mr. Tate, what protocol should a parent follow if they do have a concern about bullying? Who should they call first at the school?
I would call and ask to talk to one of the principals. And then if that campus has a committee, they can turn that over to them. But I would reach out to an administrator on the campus.
Okay. And if a parent doesn't feel as if their concerns are being addressed at the campus level, what can they do next?
I would say the same thing. Reach out to start at the the campus administrative level. Let the parent voice their concerns, and let the administrator explain what action was taken, or why the action was taken, the reason why it was taken. I would start at the administrative level on that campus, though.
Valerie, adding to that, basically, the district has policy in place. Absolutely, Mr. Tate's right. Start at the campus level, and every bullying incident that's reported, we investigate to determine if it's meeting the threshold of the definition of bullying. That doesn't, and like you said, if it doesn't meet that definition, that does not mean that we don't take action. There's still action that can be taken. And then the district policy, it's FNG. It gives a complete detailed process for if you, whether you want to call it, filed a complaint or whatever at the campus level, and you're unhappy, how you go about going through that. We call it the grievance process, and it's laid out and the school board policy that's available online.
Okay. Right, and all of that can be found under the About section, and the Board of Trustees. Our policies are under there as well on our website. So one question that we had come in from a parent regarding the high school specifically is about ID lanyards. Are students required to wear an ID lanyard while on property at the high school?
Well, we're in transition. There was a new law that came out this year that states that if your campus requires an ID, that there has to be some hotline phone numbers placed on the back side of those IDs. So with that, we have reordered new IDs. We've got that partial order in, so we haven't given them back out, but it is something that once we have them all in, we are going to readdress and possibly require students to have those.
Okay. And I know we're waiting on Lieutenant Counts, hopefully, to be able to join us. I believe he's gotten tied up with an issue, understandably. So I'm going to skip down just a little bit to see if he is able to join us. I'll save a couple of questions here for that. But on the topic of safety and security, we had a very chilly morning. And so the topic has come up as far as, when do we cancel school? How do we keep kids safe in the event of ice or snow? Dr. Bland, do you want to touch a little bit, and Mr. Cade,
Sure.
on
We
how that's
try to monitor. Yeah, we try to monitor the weather based on my joints and my shoulders and my wrist. If they're starting to ache really bad, I know that we're probably fixing to have bad weather. No, I think there are people who may think that that's what we do. We're in constant contact whenever we know that there's weather coming. We monitor the National Weather Service, and I know Deputy Marshal Hines has been on several calls with the National Weather Service whenever we're in inclement weather, and as the local TV stations do their best, but I've really learned over time the best place to get our information about this is with the National Weather Service, and then we try to make an informed decision if we have time. If a storm's coming in during the evening hours, early morning hours, then we get out and we drive roads that we know they're the heavy travel roads, and where the buses will be traveling, and where our parents will be traveling, and even on the less travel roads to make a decision on safety. There is no perfect solution. We try to balance between most of our students, whenever the safest place they have on a daily basis is at school, and so can we have school and get them in there and back safely? If we make that decision that we can't, then we're not going to have school. And then if it's questionable weather, whether it's ice, snow, those are obviously the big ones. A parent can always make the decision that they're not going to send their child, or they want to come pick their child up. We encourage them to, we take it really serious when we're making those decisions about whether we're going to be open or not for bad weather. And it's a tough call. We depend on and me personally, I depend a lot on the National Weather Service, and whenever we're looking at what they're telling us.
Absolutely. And one of the things I hear often in my role is sometimes streets might be good in one part of the area and they're not in the other. And one thing that we try to consider as well is our teen drivers. We have high school kids that are newer to the roads, and that is an important safety concern as well.
That's a huge concern, and Nathan may be able to address this better than me, but generally speaking, what will happen will be the major traveled roads may not be as bad as then when you get into the side roads and you get into some of the rural roads that still have. I know you don't have a lot of shade during the winter, but if there's trees providing any kind of shading, that the ice and snow tends to accumulate and linger longer than it does on those major travel roads.
Yeah, I agree. TxDOT does a great job and the city does too. Like you said, we have the weather service just started doing briefings this year. It was fantastic during the ice storms that we had. We had everybody from all different parts of the state in our region. So those are great. I think they're going to continue doing those. So that was a huge help to know it was coming up in the next 12 hours, something like that. So kudos to the school because you guys do great on security, safety. We have meetings quite often. So I just want to say thanks to you guys for all your hard work.
Well, that's
Thank you, and
reciprocal. I'm sorry, Valerie. I said that's reciprocal because we feel like we have a great relationship with all the emergency responders, and actually, and sometimes our perception in reality, and I hope we have an environment where whenever that's not the case, then we expect it to be open communication to come and say, hey, we need some help here. We didn't get enough information here, but I think we have that kind of relationship with all of them. That we can do the same thing. We can call and say, hey, what's going on with this, and have a good open communication. Working with the county, with just all the emergency responders, and has been, we're really lucky in Scurry County and in Snyder ISD to have the way we all work together.
Absolutely. And that is something too in our safety and security meetings that we have a great representation from all perspectives to be able to make sure that we're doing everything we need to do to keep everyone safe. And that covers a lot of different topics, doesn't it, Mr. Tate, in those meetings?
Yes, ma'am, it does. But again, we work together. Police department, fire department do great helping us anytime we need it. So it's really appreciated. And
one of the questions that we had come in, and we'll touch on this, we may not be able to cover it completely without Lieutenant Counts here, but it was on the topic of drugs. And is it a problem at Snyder ISD? And what are we doing about it? Mr. Tate, you might be able to touch on that a little bit, or.
Okay, some of the things that we do here at the anybody involved in UIL, we have random drug testing. The purpose of that is not to catch kids using drugs necessarily. It's more to give them a reason to say no. But we have randomly drug testing that we do. Anybody involved in extracurricular activities, or if you park here on campus at the high school. So that's one of the things we do. We have drug dogs that come in, do random searches. Those are some of the things that we do to try to fight that.
And I know we've had conversations with the police department. I mean, we're no different than any community. Yeah, there are drug problems, and it ranges from the misuse of prescription drugs all the way down to the I guess the quote illegal drugs. But I think we do a really good job still, and I will say this again and again, working collaboratively to stay on top of it. I don't know that there's a perfect answer. It's a societal issue more than it is just a school issue. And so if you live in a community that has major drug problems, then you're going to have a school that has them too. It's just that they kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely. And I like what you said, Mr. Tate, about the drug testing, giving students a reason to say no. I think that's important. And that's something for parents to take note of too, as you're talking to your kids, to remind them about that, to try to encourage them that there, other than obvious reasons, there is random drug screens that they may be susceptible to that could exclude them from things they enjoy.
Well, all of the drug testing programs, that's what they're designed for. They are not designed to catch people. that have used drugs. It is and that is exactly the way we say it. It's to provide motivation to say a reason to say no. That if you catch yourself in a circumstance you don't want to be in, that gives you an opportunity to say, you know, we may be tested, so I need to say no to this. Yeah, that is the primary purpose of those programs.
Absolutely. And I just want to remind you, if you're on the call and you would like to ask a question, we've just got a few minutes left. I'm going to give you an opportunity to type that into the Q&A section, and we'd be glad to answer your question.
Valerie?
Mhm.
And I know there was one of the questions that came in about is Snyder PD committed to continue to provide 2 SROs in our district. And we've had those conversations with the police department. They are committed to that. And I know this isn't limited to Snyder community or Snyder ISD. Recruiting and retention of officers, teachers, those are all issues that we deal with here in Snyder. And I know they're going through that process right now, and they keep us informed on where they are as far as making sure we have that second SRO.
Right. And that's a unique position, a school resource officer or an SRO, somebody that's willing to develop relationships with kids as well as serve as a safety officer as well.
And that's what we see. The primary role of that SRO is to build those relationships with students. Yes, it's just they're a huge asset to our district, and I'm glad we get to work with the PD is great. The Snyder PD doing that, it's good for both. Those relationship building, it goes both ways on that the law enforcement gets to build relationships with some of our kids as the kids get to do it, and they get to know each other as people, not as it's more preventative than reactive, I guess is the way I would say it. And whenever if the first time you interact with law enforcement is because something's gone wrong and they're there doing their duty, we tend to be really defensive. But if you've built relationships with those people, then it tends to make everything go a lot smoother.
Absolutely. And we're lucky to have the resource officers that we have, and then also the police department as well, committed to good response times and all of that. So that's definitely a plus here at our campuses, for sure.
And we work collaboratively with them on a lot of things. I mean, the emergency response personnel across the county, I think they use our facilities for trainings, for active shooter trainings and stuff. And that's great. We want to do that as often as possible.
Absolutely. Well, we've just got a few minutes left. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that any of our panelists would like to add?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us, as well as just the collaborative effort that each of you all have in working with us to make sure that our staff and our students stay safe. It is no small role, and we appreciate everything that you all do. And for our attendees today, we thank you very much for being involved. It makes a difference. Thank you for joining us, and please encourage your fellow parents and friends to watch the replay of this video. And if they have any questions, or if you have any questions afterwards, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you. We want to answer those questions and have a good line of communication with you. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.